My ancestors were Slovak. They came to the United States in the late 19th century, early 20th century. They flocked to the Mahoning Valley, which was known as the Steel Valley because of all the factories that lined the Mahoning River. They came for work and a new life. But the great influx of immigrants caused a great deal of tension, and the reaction was quite disturbing. The Ku Klux Klan became extremely powerful in the area. In the early 1920s, they spread terror throughout the area. Their cry was, all of our problems come from south of the Alps and east of the Urals, meaning from Italy and the Balkans and the Eastern European countries. My grandfather, my mother's father, died at age 32, gassed to death in a steel mill accident, and left his wife, a widow, with a number of small children. The Klan erected a cross near the home, set it afire, and started chanting, "Hunkies go home, hunkies go home." My grandmother pulled down the shades to the house, had the children kneel, and they prayed together the rosary in Slovak. My mother, as a very small girl, did not know what was happening, but remembered it all of her life. Sometimes the racial and ethnic slurs went over her innocent head. She was walking down the street one day with her little girlfriends. They were about 7 years old or so. The woman came out on the front porch and yelled, "Why don't you go back where you came from?" And so the kids thought for a moment, and they said, "6th Street?" And they turned around and walked home. But many other times, the violence was clear to all. My own father at the time, he was about 8 or 9 years old, would go with his friends into the woods that was near the fields where the Klan would meet and burn their crosses. And the Slovak and Polish and Irish kids would let loose with a volley of rocks from their slingshots. And they would keep firing until the Klansmen realized what was happening, and then the kids would scurry off through the woods, terrified of being caught. It was a time of terror. One time, 6 Klansmen were walking down a street, and an unlikely hero came forth. A loner, a white Protestant, a railroader, perpetual bachelor. He knew what was up, and he walks out on his porch with his shotgun, and he says to the Klansmen, "What are you doing?" And they said, "We're coming to clean up the neighborhood. Get rid of the trash." They were heading for an elderly Croatian man's home who lived by himself. The railroader didn't really know the Croatian gentleman, but he said to the Klansmen, "The only trash I see is in front of me, and if you don't turn back, the garbage trucks will be picking up your bodies in a few hours." They went home. It was a time of terror. But it left an indelible mark on my mother, so that when she grew up, she could not tolerate bigotry. She was intolerant of intolerance. The N-word was banned from our home. If any visitors used it, she would immediately say, "We don't use that type of language here." She remembered what the Kluxers had done to her and to her family. It was a time of terror. The other result was that the ethnic communities realized they had to band together. The National Klan in the mid-1920s had a financial and sexual scandal which broke their growing national power. Locally, there was a large Klan parade with many cars lined up. And all the ethnic groups got together, and the African Americans. There was a huge riot. The Klansmen were defeated, their cars burned. Thank God no one was killed. But after that, their power locally dissipated. One of the men that had went to terrorize the old Croatian gentleman, he became completely paranoid, put spotlights up all around his house, lived in terror. Hatred bred fear, bred desperation. Now the truth is that in every corner of the world there are organizations like the Ku Klux Klan that try to feed ethnic or racial or national hatred. And these organizations cause an untold amount of harm. In Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in any corner of the world, they exist. And unfortunately, we have racial and ethnic and national conflict at the four corners of the earth. That's why it's important that each civilization have a rule by law with honest judges and the judicial system that is working and functioning well. Also that we have police forces around the world that enforce the laws equally between the various ethnic and racial groups. We need political leaders that will try to serve with an even hand all of their constituencies, whatever their ethnic or racial background might be. And also, we need spiritual leaders from all the religions of the world to remind people that we're all God's children and deserving of respect. Every time I preach and teach, I keep that in mind. And I try to teach people to respect the religions of other people, to respect their racial backgrounds, their cultural heritages, while being proud of their own, and to remind them that to be a disciple of Jesus of Nazareth is to be a peacemaker in a violent world. May God be with you on your journey and protect you and your loved ones from the hatred that comes from the outside and that demonic hatred that could rise up in any heart and any mind.